Dr. Alex Carter had always been the kind of person who read instruction manuals 3 times before assembling furniture. So when he volunteered for the cultural exchange program to planet Zephyria, he studied everything he could find about their customs, traditions, and social rules. What he didn't expect was that some of the most important traditions weren't written down anywhere. The shuttle landing felt like stepping into a dream. Zephyrria's capital city stretched out before him with gleaming towers that seemed to twist toward the sky like frozen lightning. The air smelled different here, like rain mixed with something sweet he couldn't identify. Everything was bigger, brighter, and more colorful than the photos had shown. Alex adjusted his formal Earth's diplomatic uniform one more time. Collar felt too tight, and his palms were sweaty, despite the pleasant weather. He was here to study their unique plant life, and hopefully learn something that could help Earth's struggling ecosystems. Simple enough, right? The welcoming ceremony was being held in the Grand Plaza, a massive circular space surrounded by crystalline buildings that reflected the purple-tinted sunlight. Thousands of Zephyrians had gathered to see the visiting human scientist. Their skin had a subtle blue-silver shimmer, and they moved with an elegant grace that made Alex feel clumsy just watching them. "Just don't embarrass the entire human race," he muttered to himself, practicing his carefully rehearsed greeting in the Zephyrian language. The words felt strange on his tongue, all clicking sounds and musical tones that his human throat could barely manage. The ceremony began with traditional music that sounded like wind chimes mixed with whale songs. Alex stood awkwardly on the platform, trying to smile and wave appropriately. The crowd seemed friendly enough, though he caught a few curious stares at his obviously different appearance. Commander Lyra Vex entered the plaza like a force of nature. She was tall, even by Zephyrian standards, with silver-blue skin that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Her uniform was decorated with medals and symbols that Alex didn't recognize, but her bearing made it clear she was someone important. Very important. She moved through the crowd with confident steps, acknowledging greetings with small nods. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elaborate style that somehow looked both elegant and practical. Alex found himself staring, not just because she was beautiful, but because she carried herself like someone who had never doubted her place in the world. The ceremony continued with speeches from various officials. Alex understood maybe half of what they were saying despite his language preparation. The automatic translator in his ear helped. It couldn't capture the emotional undertones and cultural references that seemed to make the crowd react with laughter or applause. Then came the part he'd been dreading most, his own speech. Alex stepped forward to the speaking podium, cleared his throat, and began the formal greeting he'd practiced hundreds of times. The words came out stilted and overly formal, but at least they were correct. "Honored people of Zephyria," he began, his voice carrying across the plaza through the sound system. "I come in peace and friendship from the planet Earth, I hope. To learn from your wisdom and share our knowledge in return." The crowd responded with polite applause. So far, so good. Alex felt his shoulders relax slightly. Maybe this wouldn't be as terrifying as he'd imagined. That's when he noticed something glinting on the ground near the podium. A small, perfectly clear crystal about the size of a baseball had apparently fallen from somewhere. It was beautiful, catching the light and throwing tiny rainbows across the platform. Without thinking, Alex bent down and picked it up. It felt warm in his hands, almost like it was alive. He looked around to see who might have dropped it, and his eyes met Commander Lyra's across the plaza. She was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. Surprise, maybe, or shock. "I think someone dropped this," Alex said into the microphone, holding up the crystal. "It's quite beautiful. I'd hate for the owner to lose it." The plaza fell completely silent. Not the polite quiet of people listening to a speech, but the absolute silence of several thousand people holding their breath at the same time. Alex looked around nervously, wondering what he'd done wrong, and someone in the crowd gasped, then another. Soon there was a low murmur of voices, growing louder by the second. Alex couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Excitement, disbelief, and something that might have been amusement. Commander Lyra stepped forward, her face now showing clear alarm. She said something in rapid Zephyrian that Alex's translator couldn't keep up with. The crowd's murmur turned turned into open chatter, and Alex noticed several people pointing at him and the crystal. Alex said into the microphone, "I'm sorry. I don't understand what's happening. Did I do something wrong? The cultural attach?" A nervous-looking Zephyrian named Krill hurried up to the platform. His face had gone pale, which was quite noticeable on his naturally blue-tinted skin. He whispered something urgently to the ceremony coordinator, who immediately began gesturing for the camera crews to keep filming. "Dr. Carter," Krill said, his voice shaking slightly, "you need to understand what you've just done. That crystal. It's not just any crystal, it's a bonding crystal. It's a very special kind of bonding crystal." Alex felt his stomach drop. In all his research, he'd never come across anything about bonding crystals. What does that mean exactly? "It means," Krill continued, glancing nervously at Commander Lyra, "that according to our laws, you have just entered into a formal pairing arrangement with Commander Vex. During the Festival of Unions, whoever retrieves a warrior's bonding crystal becomes their designated life partner." The crystal suddenly felt very heavy in Alex's hands. He looked at it again, then at Commander Lyra, who was now striding toward the platform with an expression that suggested she was either going to laugh or challenge him to single combat. "I'm sorry, they're what now?" Alex asked, though he had a sinking feeling he'd heard correctly the first time. "Their mating reward," Krill whispered. "You are now legally considered Commander Vex's chosen partner. The ceremony is being broadcast live across the entire planet. Congratulations, Dr. Carter. You're about to become the most famous human in the galaxy." Alex looked out at the crowd, which was now cheering and applauding enthusiastically. Camera. Drones buzzed overhead, capturing every moment of his obvious panic. Commander Lyra reached the platform and stood before him, her dark eyes unreadable. "So," she said in accented but perfect English, "you're my reward, are you?" Alex held up the crystal with shaking hands. "I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. I was just trying to return what I thought was lost property." "Unfortunately," Commander Lyra replied, "Zephyrian law doesn't recognize misunderstandings, only actions and consequences. And your action has just bonded us together in the eyes of my people." The crowd was getting louder, and Alex could see news drones from other planets beginning to arrive. Whatever he'd accidentally done, it was apparently big news, very big news. "How do we fix this?" Alex asked desperately. Commander Lyra looked at him for a long moment, then at the celebrating crowd, then back at him. "We have 7 planetary rotations to figure that out. Until then, Dr. Carter, welcome to your new life as the most watched couple in the galaxy." As if on cue, the crowd erupted in cheers, and Alex realized that his simple scientific mission had just become the most complicated situation of his entire life. The crystal in his hand seemed to pulse with warmth, as if it was pleased with the chaos it had caused. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Alex wondered if maybe, just maybe, this wasn't entirely an accident after all. The next morning, Alex woke up in what had to be the most uncomfortable bed in the galaxy. It wasn't that the Zephyrian sleeping platform was physically uncomfortable. It was actually quite soft and seemed to adjust to his body temperature automatically. The problem was that it was in Commander Lyra's house, and he had absolutely no idea how he'd gotten there. "Computer," came Lyra's voice from somewhere in the dwelling, "why is the food synthesizer producing Earth-style breakfast items?" "Good morning, Commander Vex," replied a pleasant electronic voice. "I have detected the presence of your bonded partner and have adjusted household functions accordingly. Would you like me to prepare a traditional Zephyrian morning meal instead?" Alex sat up quickly, running his hands through his messy hair. Right, the bonding crystal, the ceremony, the fact that he was now legally paired with a woman he'd met exactly 1 day ago. It hadn't been a very strange dream after all. He stumbled out of the guest sleeping chamber and found Lyra standing in what appeared to be a kitchen. Though it looked more like a laboratory than anything from Earth, she was wearing a simple gray uniform that somehow still managed to look official and intimidating. "Good morning," Alex said awkwardly, then immediately wondered if that was even the right greeting. Did Zephyrian say good morning? Is there a special way bonded partners were supposed to greet each other? Lyra looked at him with the same unreadable expression she'd worn during the ceremony. The house computer has been trying to accommodate your presence since you arrived. It's quite confused about what humans eat for breakfast. Oh, Alex said, looking around at the sleek surfaces and glowing panels. I usually just have coffee and toast. Nothing fancy. Coffee? Lyra asked, raising one silver eyebrow. Don't! Think our synthesizer knows what that is. As if responding to her comment, the kitchen computer chimed in. I have accessed the cultural database and found 17 different Earth beverages called coffee. Would you like me to attempt synthesis? Of the most popular variety? Alex nodded gratefully. That would be amazing, thank you. A panel slid open in the wall, and a steaming cup appeared. Alex took a careful sip and nearly choked. Whatever the computer had created tasted like burnt rubber mixed with sugar water. It's unique, he managed, setting the cup down quickly. Lyra almost smiled. Almost. The house is trying its best. It's not used to accommodating anyone other than me. I don't usually have guests. Right, Alex said, suddenly remembering that he wasn't just a guest. According to Zephyrian law, he was something much more complicated. About that, how exactly does this work? I mean, the living arrangements and all. According to tradition, Lyra explained, moving to a wall panel that displayed what looked like legal documents. During the bonding period, partners must share living space to determine compatibility. The house has been modified to recognize your biometric signature. Alongside mine, as if to demonstrate, a door that had been sealed the night before suddenly opened when Alex approached it. Welcome to the exercise facility, Dr. Carter, the house announced cheerfully. I have prepared a workout routine suitable for human physiology. Alex peered inside and saw equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Think I'll stick to walking for now, he said, and the door obediently closed. The house learns, Lyra said, and this time Alex was sure he caught a hint of amusement in her voice. By the end of the week, it will probably know more about human habits than most humans do. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chiming sound. Commander Vex, the house announced. There are 17 news crews outside the security perimeter. They are requesting interviews about your bonding ceremony. Lyra's expression immediately hardened. Deny all requests. Activate privacy shields. Alex moved to a window and carefully peered outside. Even through the tinted glass, he could see the crowd of reporters and camera crews gathered beyond the property line. Hover vehicles from various news networks circled overhead like mechanical vultures. Is it always like this? Alex asked. No, Lyra replied curtly. Usually they ignore me unless there's a military crisis. This is ... different. I'm sorry, Alex said, feeling genuinely bad about the situation. I never meant to cause problems for you. Lyra studied him for a moment. I know. The cultural attach explained that humans don't have bonding crystals or similar customs. You couldn't have known. So what happens now? Alex asked. I mean, obviously neither of us planned this. Is there a way to, unbond? The High Council will meet in 6 days to review the situation, Lyra said, pulling up another display. Until then, we're legally required to cohabitate and attempt to determine compatibility. Compatibility for what, exactly? Partnership. Leadership. Whether you're suitable to stand beside a Zephyrian military commander, she paused, then added more quietly, whether I'm suitable to be bonded to anyone at all. Alex caught something in her tone, a hint of uncertainty that seemed out of place for someone so confident. You don't want to be bonded to anyone? I've never had time, Lyra said, turning away from the displays. My position requires complete dedication. Personal relationships are ... complicated. Before Alex could respond, the house chimed again. Commander Vex, you have a priority message from High Command. Display it, Lyra said. A holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed an older Zephyrian male with elaborate military decorations and an expression that suggested he'd been eating something sour. Commander Vex, the image said, I trust you understand the embarrassment this situation has caused. A human. Really? The Council of Generals is meeting today to discuss whether this ... incident affects your fitness for command? The message ended and the hologram disappeared. Lyra stood very still for a moment, her hands clenched at her sides. They're questioning your leadership because of me, Alex said. It wasn't a question. High Commander Zrak has been looking for an excuse to challenge my authority for months, Lyra admitted. This gives him the perfect opportunity. Alex felt a surge of anger on her behalf. That's not fair. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm the one who picked up the crystal. Fairness isn't always relevant in politics, Lyra said. What matters is perception. And right now, the perception is that I've been bonded to an alien who doesn't understand our customs. Then I'll learn, Alex said without thinking. I'll learn everything I can about your customs, your culture, your laws. I'll prove that I'm not just some clueless human. Lyra looked at him with surprise. Why would you do that? This isn't your problem to solve. Because Alex said, surprising himself with his determination, you've been nothing but kind to me, even though I've turned your life upside down. And because it's the right thing to do. No. For the first time since he'd met her, Lyra smiled. It was a small smile, but it was genuine. Very well, Dr. Carter. If you're serious about this, then we begin your education immediately. But I warn you, Zephyrian customs are complex, and some of them might seem strange to human sensibilities. I'm a scientist, Alex said. I specialize in understanding things that seem strange at first. How hard could it be? Al's computer chimed in helpfully. I have accessed the cultural database and found 1,247 essential customs and traditions that Dr. Carter should learn. Shall I begin with basic greeting protocols? Alex and Lyra looked at each other, and for the first time, they both smiled at the same time. This is going to be interesting, Alex said. Indeed, Lyra agreed. Computer, begin the lessons. And maybe try to synthesize some actual coffee this time. Outside, the news crews continued their vigil, completely unaware that, inside the house, two very different people were about to embark on the crash course of their lives. 3 days into his crash course in Zephyrian culture, Alex discovered that learning alien customs was like trying to solve a puzzle where someone kept changing the pieces. Just when he thought he understood something, Lyra would mention an exception, or a regional variation, or a historical context that completely flipped his understanding upside down. No, Lyra said patiently as Alex attempted the traditional greeting for the 15th time that morning. Your hand position indicates you're challenging me to a duel. Try again, but keep your palm flat. Alex adjusted his hand and tried. Once more, this time, according to the house computer's analysis, he'd apparently just offered to sell Lyra his grandmother. They'd been at this for 2 hours, and Alex was beginning to wonder if his brain was simply too human to handle Zephyrian social customs. Maybe we should take a break, he suggested, rubbing his temples. I think I'm making it worse. Actually, Lyra said, you're improving faster than I expected. Most diplomatic visitors take weeks to master basic greetings. Really? Alex perked up, because I feel like I'm failing spectacularly. You're learning, Lyra said, and Alex noticed she'd been smiling more often over the past few days. That's what matters. Their practice session was interrupted by an urgent chiming from the house communication system. Commander Vex, the computer announced. High Commander Zrak is requesting immediate audio communication. Lyra's expression immediately became serious. Accept the call. A voice filled the room, deep and commanding with an undertone that made Alex's skin crawl. Commander Vex, I trust you've been enjoying your ... vacation from duty. I've been on authorized leave, High Commander, Lyra replied, her voice carefully neutral. As required by law during the bonding period. Yes, about that. Zrak's voice carried a hint of amusement that somehow sounded threatening. The Council of Generals has been discussing your situation. You decided that your human requires proper evaluation. Alex felt Lyra tense beside him. What kind of evaluation? The challenge of worthiness, of course, Zrak said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. If this human is truly worthy of bonding with a Zephyrian military commander, he should be able to prove it through our traditional tests. The challenge hasn't been used in over 50 years, Lyra said. It's an outdated tradition, perhaps. Zrak agreed. But it's still legally valid. And given the unusual circumstances of your bonding, the Council feels it's necessary to ensure that your partner meets appropriate standards. Alex looked at Lyra, who was staring at the wall with the kind of intensity that suggested she was either deep in thought or planning someone's destruction. "What happens if I fail this challenge?" he asked. "Ah, the human speaks," Zrak said, and Alex definitely didn't like the amusement in his voice. "If you fail, Dr. Carter, you'll be declared unworthy of bonding with a Zephyrian citizen. You'll be asked to leave our planet immediately. And if I pass, then you'll be permanently bonded to Commander Vex, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Including, I might add, the expectation that you'll remain on Zephyria for the rest of your life." Alex felt his mouth go dry. Permanently. Bonded. Never returning to Earth. Never seeing his family or friends again. It was one thing to help Lyra through a temporary political crisis, but this was something else entirely. "The challenge will take place in 3 days, Zrak continued. "That should give you adequate time to prepare. Good luck, Dr. Carter. You'll need it." The communication ended, leaving Alex and Lyra standing in silence. Alex's mind was racing through the implications. 3 days to prepare for tests he didn't understand, with stakes that were higher than he'd ever imagined. "I don't have to do this," he said finally. "I could just leave now, go back to Earth, and let you deal with the political fallout." Lyra looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. "Is that what you want to do?" Alex thought about it, really thought about it. 3 days ago, the answer would have been obvious. He'd come to Zephyria for a simple research mission, not to get tangled up in alien politics and permanent life commitments, but something had changed over the past few days. He'd watched Lyra patiently teach him about her culture, even when he made ridiculous mistakes. He'd seen her handle the media circus with grace and dignity, even though he knew it was affecting her career. He'd learned that beneath her commander's uniform, she was funny and kind and surprisingly interested in his stories about Earth. "No," he said, "I don't want to leave. But I also don't want to fail and make things worse for you. The challenges are designed to test intelligence, courage, and compatibility," Lyra said. "They're not impossible, but they're not easy either, especially for someone who hasn't grown up with our customs." "Then we'd better start preparing," Alex said. "What do I need to know?" For the first time since Zrak's call, Lyra smiled. "Everything. We have 3 days to teach you." The next 3 days passed in a blur of intensive training. Lyra taught Alex about Zephyrian history, military strategy, and cultural values. The house computer provided simulations and practice scenarios. Alex learned about the complex social hierarchies, the philosophical foundations of Zephyrian law, and the subtle art of diplomatic communication. But more importantly, he learned about Lyra herself. During their long study sessions, she told him about her childhood, her rise through the military ranks, and the pressure of being one of the few female commanders in a traditionally male-dominated system. "I've never had time for personal relationships," she admitted one evening as they reviewed tactical scenarios. "My career has always come first. It had to." "Why?" Alex asked. "Because I had to prove I was twice as good as my male colleagues just to be considered equal," she said. "Any sign of weakness or distraction could have ended my career before it began." Alex looked at her with new understanding. "And now I've become the biggest distraction of all." "Yes," Lyra said, but she was smiling. "You have." They worked late into the night every night. Alex discovered that he was better at strategic thinking than he'd given himself credit for, and Lyra was an excellent teacher. She was patient with his mistakes and encouraging when he got things right. On the morning of the challenge, Alex woke up feeling more nervous than he'd ever been in his life. The tests would be held in the Grand Plaza, where their accidental bonding had begun. They would be broadcast live across the planet. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked as they prepared to leave. Alex looked at her, this amazing woman who had become so important to him in such a short time. "I'm terrified," he admitted, "but I'm ready." "Good," Lyra said. "Because whether you pass or fail, I want you to know that these past few days have been the best of my life." Alex felt his heart skip. "Really? Really?" she said. "Now let's go show Zrak what a human can do." As they left the house together, Alex realized that somewhere between the cultural lessons and late-night conversations, something had changed. This wasn't just about helping Lyra anymore, or proving himself to the Zephyrian people. This was about choosing the life he wanted to live, and the person he wanted to live it with. The Grand Plaza looked completely different from the day Alex had accidentally changed his life. Instead of a celebration, it now resembled an arena. 3 distinct testing areas had been set up, each one designed to push him to his limits. Thousands of Zephyrians filled the viewing areas, and camera drones buzzed overhead like electronic insects. Alex stood at the edge of the first testing zone, trying to calm his racing heart. His hands were sweating despite the cool morning air, and he kept running through everything Lyra had taught him over the past 3 days. Somewhere in the crowd, she was watching, probably more nervous than he was. High Commander Zrak stepped onto the central platform, his uniform gleaming with medals and his expression suggesting he was about to enjoy himself immensely. Citizens of Zephyria, his voice boomed across the plaza. Today we witness the challenge of worthiness. Dr. Alex Carter will face 3 tests to determine if he is suitable to bond with one of our finest military commanders, the crowd murmured. With excitement, Alex noticed that betting displays had appeared on several screens around the plaza. The odds were not in his favor. The first test, Zrak announced, measures intelligence and understanding of our culture. Dr. Carter must solve the puzzle of unity, which has challenged our greatest minds for generations. A large crystalline structure rose from the ground in front of Alex. It was beautiful and complex, with dozens of interlocking pieces that glowed with soft light. At first glance, it looked impossible to solve. "You have 1 hour," Zrak said. "Begin." Alex approached the puzzle carefully. During their training sessions, Lyra had mentioned this test briefly. It wasn't just about moving pieces around until they fit. It was about understanding the philosophy behind Zephyrian society. The puzzle represented their core belief that individual strength came from community cooperation. He began by studying the pieces rather than trying to move them immediately. Each one was carved with symbols that told part of Zephyrria's history. Some depicted ancient battles, others showed scientific discoveries, and still others represented cultural achievements. The key wasn't just arranging them physically, but understanding how their history connected together. Alex started with the oldest symbols, the ones Lyra had said represented the founding of their civilization. As he placed the first piece, it clicked into place with a satisfying chime. The crowd behind him stirred with interest. Working methodically, Alex began to see the pattern. Each piece represented not just an event, but how that event had built upon previous ones. The military victories were meaningless without the scientific advances that made them possible. The cultural achievements wouldn't have existed without the social stability created by their early laws. 20 minutes in, Alex had completed about a quarter of the puzzle. His confidence was growing, but he could feel the pressure of the crowd watching his every move. Every mistake would be broadcast across the planet. Then he hit a problem. 3 pieces seemed like they should fit together, but no matter how he arranged them, they wouldn't lock into place. Alex stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead. He was missing something important. He thought about his conversations with Lyra, about how she'd described the balance between tradition and progress in Zephyrian society. These 3 pieces represented exactly that tension: military tradition, scientific innovation, and social change. They couldn't be forced together. They had to be balanced. Alex tried a different approach. Instead of trying to make the pieces fit his idea of how they should go, he let them guide him to where they belonged. Suddenly, the solution became clear. The pieces didn't just fit together, they supported each other, creating a structure that was stronger than any individual component. With 15 minutes to spare, Alex placed the final piece. The entire puzzle burst into brilliant light, and the crowd erupted in surprised applause. Even Zrak looked impressed, though he tried to hide it. "The first test is complete," Zrak announced. "Dr. Carter has demonstrated adequate understanding of our cultural foundations. The second test begins immediately." The puzzle sank back into the ground, and a new structure emerged. This one looked like an obstacle course designed by someone with a very creative imagination and possibly a grudge against gravity. There were spinning platforms, energy barriers, and what appeared to be a section where the floor disappeared entirely. "The test of courage," Zrak explained, requires not just bravery, but wisdom. Reckless action will result in failure, as will excessive caution. You must find the balance. Alex stared at the course. During their training, Lyra had mentioned that this test had defeated many candidates who were physically stronger and more experienced than him. It wasn't about being fearless. It was about being smart about fear. He started cautiously, testing each platform before putting his full weight on it. The first few obstacles were straightforward, designed to build confidence. But as he progressed, they became more complex and dangerous. The spinning platforms required timing and trust. Alex watched the pattern for several rotations before making his move, jumping from one to the next with careful precision. The crowd held its breath as he navigated the section where the floor flickered in and out of existence, requiring him to leap based on timing rather than sight. But the real test came at the end. A massive energy barrier blocked his path, crackling with power that looked definitely dangerous. There was no obvious way around it, over it, or through it. Alex stood before the barrier, thinking. This was supposed to test courage and wisdom together. Charging through would be brave but stupid. Finding a way around would be smart but might be seen as cowardly. Then he remembered something Lyra had said about Zephyrian military philosophy. Sometimes, the most courageous act is admitting you need help. Alex turned to the crowd and, in his carefully practiced Zephyrian, asked for guidance. The crowd buzzed with confusion. No one had ever asked for help during the challenge before. But then, an elderly Zephyrian in the front row called out a single word in their ancient language. Alex recognized it from his studies. It meant together. He turned back to the barrier and pressed his hand against it while speaking the word aloud. The barrier dissolved instantly. The crowd went wild. Alex had passed the second test, not through individual heroics, but by understanding that true courage sometimes meant relying on community wisdom. Impressive, Zrak admitted grudgingly. The final test awaits. The obstacle course disappeared, replaced by a simple circular platform where Lyra was waiting for him. Alex's heart skipped. He hadn't expected to see her during the actual tests. The test of compatibility, Zrak announced, requires both partners to work together to solve a crisis facing our community. You will have 30 minutes to develop and present a solution to a real problem currently affecting our capital city. A holographic display appeared, showing data about the city's water distribution system. Alex quickly scanned the information. There was a shortage affecting the newer residential districts, while the older areas had adequate supply. The problem is distribution inequality, Lyra said quietly as they studied the data together. But the solution isn't just technical. Alex nodded, understanding immediately. This wasn't just about fixing pipes or pumps. It was about addressing social and economic factors that had created the inequality in the first place. They worked together seamlessly. Combining Alex's scientific background with Lyra's understanding of local politics and social dynamics, Alex proposed a technical solution involving improved filtration and distribution networks. Lyra added plans for community oversight and fair allocation policies. But their real breakthrough came when they realized they could use Alex's research into plant biology to create natural filtration systems that would be both more efficient and more sustainable than traditional technology. When they presented their solution, it addressed not just the immediate water shortage, but created a model for community-managed resources that could be applied to other problems. The crowd was impressed, but more importantly, Alex and Lyra had discovered that they truly worked well together. All 3 tests are complete, Zrak announced, though he looked like he'd tasted something sour. Dr. Carter has demonstrated intelligence, courage, and compatibility. According to our laws, he is worthy of bonding with Commander Vex. The crowd cheered, but Alex barely heard them. He was looking at Lyra, realizing that somewhere between the puzzle and the platforms and the problem-solving, he'd fallen completely. In love with her. It's just one problem, Zrak continued, his voice cutting through the celebration. The challenge itself was rigged. I designed it to be impossible for a human to pass. The plaza fell silent. Alex felt his stomach drop. What does that mean? Zrak smiled coldly. It means that your success proves nothing, because the test was fraudulent from the beginning. The bonding is still invalid. Alex looked at Lyra, whose face had gone pale. After everything they'd been through, after discovering their feelings for each other, it was all being taken away by political manipulation. But as Alex watched Lyra's expression change from shock to anger to determination, he realized that Zrak had made one crucial mistake. He'd given them a reason to fight back together. The Grand Plaza erupted in confused voices as Zrak's words sank in. Alex stood frozen on the testing platform, trying to process what had just happened. He'd passed 3 impossible tests, proven himself worthy by every measure that mattered. And now, it was all being swept away by political manipulation. But Lyra wasn't frozen. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the crowd noise like a blade. "Hi, Commander Zrak! Are you admitting to fraud in front of the entire planet?" Zarak's confident smile faltered slightly. "I'm admitting to protecting Zephyrian interests. These challenges were designed to expose the foolishness of bonding our military leaders to aliens. By cheating?" Alex found his voice, anger giving him strength. "You rigged the test to make me fail, and when I succeeded anyway, you're just going to change the rules?" "Rules are made by those in power," Rek replied coldly. "And you, Dr. Carter, have no power here." "Maybe not," Alex said, stepping beside Lyra. "But she does." Lyra moved to the center of the platform, addressing the crowd directly. "Citizens of Zephyria, you've just witnessed something unprecedented. Not just a human passing our sacred challenges, but a high-ranking official admitting to manipulating those same challenges for personal gain." The crowd was listening intently now. Camera drones zoomed in to capture every word. Alex realized that this moment was being broadcast not just across Zephyria, but throughout the galaxy. "High Commander Zrak claims he rigged the tests to protect our interests," Lyra continued. "But what interests are served by destroying the integrity of our traditions? What honor is there in challenges that can be manipulated by those who don't? Like the results?" Several members of the crowd began nodding. Alex could see the mood shifting as people realized the implications of what Zrak had admitted. "Furthermore," Lyra said, her voice growing stronger, "Dr. Carter has demonstrated something remarkable today. Faced with impossible odds designed to make him fail, he succeeded through intelligence, courage, and cooperation. Are these not the exact qualities we value in Zephyrian society?" "He's still an alien," Zrak protested, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "So was I once," came a new voice from the crowd. An elderly Zephyrian woman stepped forward, her age-weathered face proud and dignified. "I came to this planet 50 years ago as a refugee from the outer systems. People of Zephyria welcomed me, and I've served this world faithfully ever since." Another voice joined her. "My grandfather was from the Crystal Moons. He became one of our greatest scientists." More voices rose from the crowd, each sharing stories of family members who had come from other worlds and contributed to Zephyrian society. Alex realized he was witnessing something powerful, a planet remembering its own history of diversity and acceptance. "Enough!" Zrak shouted, but his authority was crumbling. "Oh, the High Council will decide this matter in private session." "No," Lyra said firmly. "This matter has been conducted in public from the beginning. It'll be resolved in public as well." She turned to Alex, and in her eyes, he saw something that made his heart race. "Dr. Carter, the fraudulent nature of these challenges means you are free to leave Zephyria without consequence. No one can force you to stay, and no one can hold you to a bonding you never chose." Alex felt the weight of the moment. This was it, his chance to return to his old life, his research, his familiar world. All he had to do was say yes. "But," Lyra continued, "if you choose to stay, it won't be because of laws or traditions or political manipulation. It will be your choice, freely made." The plaza fell silent. Alex could feel thousands of eyes watching him, waiting for his decision. But all he could see was Lyra, the remarkable woman who had taught him about courage and wisdom and the importance of choosing your own path. "Commander Vex," Alex said, his voice carrying clearly across the plaza. "Over the past week, you've shown me wonders I never imagined. You've taught me about a culture that values both strength and cooperation, tradition and progress. Been patient with my mistakes and generous with your knowledge." He paused, taking a deep breath. "But most importantly, you've shown me what partnership really means. Not obligation or duty, but choosing to face the universe together, because together we're stronger than we could ever be apart. Alex stepped closer to Lyra, taking her hands in his. So yes, I choose to stay. Not because some crystal says I have to, not because I passed some tests, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Alex barely heard them. Lyra was smiling at him with tears in her eyes, and nothing else mattered. In that case, Lyra said, I have an announcement to make. She turned back to the crowd. I hereby resign my commission in the Zephyrian military, effective immediately. The cheering stopped abruptly. Alex stared at her in shock. Lyra, no. You can't give up your career for me. I'm not giving it up for you, she said. I'm giving it up for us, for the chance to build something new together, without the weight of military politics and power games. Serac looked stunned.
Ow.
You can't resign. You're too valuable to the military. Then maybe the military should have valued me enough not to manipulate my personal life for political gain. Lyra replied calmly. An older woman in elaborate robes stepped onto the platform. Alex recognized her as one of the High Council members from the news broadcasts. Commander Vex, she said, the Council has been watching these events with great interest. We do not accept your resignation. Lyra's expression hardened. With respect, Counselor, you cannot refuse a voluntary resignation. We can when we're promoting you, the Counselor said with a slight smile. By unanimous vote of the High Council, you are hereby promoted to Supreme Commander of Cultural Integration. With a mandate to reform outdated traditions that no longer serve our society's best interests, the crowd cheered again, even louder than before. Alex felt dizzy with the rapid changes. What does that mean? He asked.
Means?
Lyra said, looking as surprised as he felt that my new job is to fix the exact problems we've been dealing with this week. And Dr. Carter, the counselor, continued. You are hereby offered a permanent position as Special Advisor on Interspecies Relations, should you choose to accept it. Alex looked at Lyra, then at the crowd of Zephyrians who were cheering for them both. A week ago, he'd been a nervous scientist, worried about embarrassing the human race. Now he was being offered the chance to help build bridges between worlds. I accept, he said. 6 months later, Alex stood in the same grand plaza where his adventure had begun. But this time he wasn't nervous. He was officiating the first reformed bonding ceremony, where couples could choose their own partners without crystals or political interference. Lyra stood beside him, wearing robes that blended Zephyrian and Earth's traditions. In the crowd, he could see representatives from dozens of different worlds, all there to witness the new era of cooperation they'd helped create. You know, Lyra said quietly as the ceremony began, I never did get to properly thank you for picking up that crystal. Alex grinned. Thank me? You mean for accidentally ruining your life? For accidentally showing me what life could be? She corrected. I was so focused on my career that I forgot there were other ways to serve my people. I was so focused on my research that I forgot there were other ways to explore the universe, Alex replied. They watched as the young couple before them exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising to choose each other every day rather than being bound by tradition alone. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't picked up that crystal?
Lyra asked.
Alex considered it. We probably would have met eventually. You might have attended one of my research presentations. Or I might have requested an interview about Zephyrian military structure. And we would have been two busy people who missed their chance at something amazing because we were too focused on our separate lives to see what we could build together. Lyra squeezed his hand. Then I'm grateful for accidents. Me too, Alex said, watching as the newly bonded couple kissed to thunderous applause. Sometimes the best choices are the ones we never planned to make. As the celebration continued, around them, Alex realized that his story had come full circle. He'd started as an outsider, trying to understand an alien culture, and ended up helping that culture understand itself better. He'd found love, purpose, and a home he'd never expected in the most unlikely circumstances. And it all began with a simple act of kindness, trying to return something that seemed lost.